This next edition of Off the Record features the Republican Vice Chair of the House Budget Committee and loyal Trump supporter, Representative Matt Maddock. Our lead story, the governor takes a hit with the loss of a semiconductor plant for Genesee County. The OTR panel, Kyle Malin, Zoe Clark, and Craig Mauger. Sit in with us as we get the inside out. Off the Record.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. And now, this edition of Off the Record with Tim Skubic.
Thank you very much. Easy, Zoe, okay? We're in a good mood this morning. Hope you are too. Welcome to Off the Record. You know what? I thought we started the week, it was nothing going on, and then all of a sudden, everything exploded, starting with a Monday plant down over in Genesee County. A bad one for the gov, eh?
Yeah, because she was hoping that she would get this $55 billion project that was going to be brought in by a company called SanDisk that was going to create an enormous economic development through that community via the CHIPS Act. That was something that the Biden administration had put out there to try and incentivize microchip factories and advanced technology companies to come back to the United States. So they were going to give these companies a bit of seed money to help. And the state government was
a bit of seed money.
Yeah, right.
It's $6 billion.
Well, when you think about, but it's not
some loose change.
Well, it's
right?
not.
And a couple
it's
of
not subsidizing.
Game.
It's not subsidizing the whole thing like the Chinese government. I guess that's what I'm getting at with that. And but the company did not get the grant when the Biden administration was still in office, and it got pushed into the Trump administration, which was not all that interested in those projects in general, but they kept this one on the table, maybe out of deference to the governor, because Governor Whitmer wanted it so much, and they had developed at the Michigan Economic Development Corporation apparently a $6 billion package, to help bring this company to Mundy Township and basically a field right now in Genesee County. And this week, the company announced that it wasn't going to happen. Tariffs, uncertainty, economic uncertainty, they pulled the plug.
I mean, it's a huge story. And it's one of those things where a lot of readers or listeners might say, oh, it's just a project that we lost out on. We lose out on these projects all the time. The governor had quite literally staked her final 2 years of her term partially on landing this project. She said publicly, my goal was to land a semiconductor manufacturing facility by the end of my term. And people might say, oh, we'll just go for another one. There aren't many of these out there. I mean, this is something, 10,000 jobs. That would be revitalizing an entire county, an entire region. You think of all the spin-off jobs of restaurants that would be filled with workers coming in to get food. This changes the future of that region to not get this project. The lawmakers who represent that area are very frustrated. It's a huge disappointment. And for the governor, I mean, how does she pick up now and find another direction for the final 2 years, trying to turn around the state's economy? There are a lot of negative signs about what the future might hold for us.
But the critics, Zoe, are going to say, and our friends over at the Bridge did the numbers on these. I'm not a math major, so I'm stealing their numbers. It was only $660 million per job.
Well, so let's talk about two separate things. One is sort of the corporate incentives, right, of which we know controversy has surrounded when we're talking about the SOAR fund, something that Gretchen Whitmer, a Democratic governor, interestingly enough, has just pushed so hard for. And early in her tenure, of course, there seemed to be bipartisan support. Now we're just sort of seeing some interesting, bedfellows of folks who are opposed. But this is the conversation about economic incentives per job. How many sort of dollars are you willing to pay per job? To Craig's point, others will argue, but it's not just, that you're going to get 10,000 jobs at, the median household income. It's the what it does to the sort of regional economy. The thing is, though, like you go back and, Tim, you will remember this well. Like there's all these folks who will say, like, we don't want these corporate incentives. But the second that a company or a plant goes to a different state, suddenly it's like, well, we didn't do enough. And you will remember well, John Engler, no more Willow runs.
Yeah, going
right?
to Texas.
Exactly. And so it is this constant negotiation and debate about what you are willing to put up to bring this. And some of it, as Paula Gardner of Bridge, who has just done amazing work, I talked to her a few months ago when she's done this math. And these are the calculations that any executive of any state is trying to figure out.
Can I make one point on this? I mean, there's a lot of talk about this is money for these jobs, and people are looking at through that kind of small lens. There are two other things on this. That does not include the federal incentives that we're also going to come to this. And why, you might say, why are we giving so much money to this potential project? This is not just another project. If you remember a few years ago during COVID, basically the economy got halted because of supply chain issues that we did not have enough of these semiconductors.
We were on the ropes.
The auto industry was on the ropes, which the entire state's economy is based around. So the idea of hey, we shouldn't provide these incentives to bring semiconductor manufacturing to the United States. So what are we going to happen next? What's going to happen next time there's another supply chain issue? I mean, this is bigger than just jobs.
Yeah, I understand that too, but we're talking about what they thought that they were going to, the governor's administration thought that they were going to put $6 billion of incentives, of taxpayer money into this. I mean, we'll ask
$2 billion incentives, and then tax. There were two tax cuts.
$2 billion.
They were going to pay $500 million rather than property taxes.
Yeah, okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
We'll ask our next guest this question, but would that have gotten through the legislature after what we saw?
I have no idea.
Okay,
First things first.
Right. could that have even gotten through the legislature?
And that's why I was bringing up the SOAR fund, because there's huge conversations right now, which maybe we'll also talk about the fact that we are now, going into the third week in July, and we don't have a budget. And one of the conversations is the billions of dollars.
Let's get to the fun part of the story, the finger pointing.
Well, there's finger pointing, and Kyle raises a great question. Would this get through the legislature? And it gets to the crux of what's happened through this entire year so far. The governor has tried to get Donald Trump on her side, President Trump on her side. If President Trump blessed this project and said the federal government's going to provide incentives and this needs to happen to bring this manufacturing back to Michigan, I think the Republicans in the legislature would have a difficult time saying, no, we're not going to do that.
This would be different, though, from what we're feeling from state government right now, which is no on incentives. You're seeing that from the Democrats and the Republicans. Nobody really, the appetite for state government to subsidize private industry feels like it's going away. I mean,
but the governor had a private conversation again with the president, and I'm told that she has these quite regularly.
Well, I mean,
he has called her on a number of occasions and vice versa.
I mean, she said to the press in a scrum after a separate announcement yesterday that she talked to the president, and the line was something like, she said, and the president said to tell the media that we will work together
to get something
better.
Get something,
or something else, or something like that. I mean, but to Craig's point, like, it's not like these are like millions of different chip plants. They're like,
But the point is, she did not call him on the carpet. She referred to tariffs. Now, you could do the math. Who put the tariffs in? It was the So she was circumspect in return and not hauling. And the Democrats, Mr. Hall et al., and I assume our guests are going to come to Mr. Trump's defense and say, you know what, his policies long-term are going to pay off in more jobs.
Some are arguing that this was something that the paperwork was sitting on Joe Biden's desk.
And they had a shot at it and they missed it.
I mean, Democrats have blamed Biden as well. I mean, there are Democratic lawmakers blaming both sides of this. I still think, though, if Governor Whitmer and President Trump stood on a stage somewhere and said, we need this project and we need these incentives, I think it would be very difficult we'll hear what Representative Maddock has to say, but would the legislature stand there and say no to their two parties' leaders? No, we're not going to do that.
Cal, he might be close to the truth.
Well, I don't think that we're ever going to see Trump and Whitmer on a stage about incentives, because I don't believe Donald Trump is in large support of those types of corporate incentives. He is not a handouts kind of guy. We haven't seen him before, so it would be a reversal in position for him to do that, which is why I don't think that we would have ever seen that.
But I would not rule out, given the nature of their relationship now from what it was back when, that they might pull something off. She's got a year and a half.
Well, we were talking about this in our office the other day. I mean, what is the biggest economic development announcement that we've had during the Whitmer administration in terms of jobs?
blew over?
I mean, how many was it? 1,000?
Well, I got scaled back.
Yeah, so I'm saying 1,000 compared to 10,000. That was what this was. How do you get to that number with something else? This does not come around very often.
And it's what many of us were talking about when there was sort of this shock and clutching of the pearls when she was in the Oval Office, and folks were going, what is she doing? Why is she? Yeah, why is she? Did you wait to make sure the camera got Tim doing it? The sort of infamous photo of that in front of the New York Times. But I mean, these were the things that were being discussed. I mean, we knew Asian carp was, we knew the storms up in northern Michigan, but when Matt Hall and Gretchen Whitmer were there, these are the conversations that are happening with the president.
I thought she might pull it off.
Big
I really
dreams,
did.
though. Remember Foxconn? Remember how Snyder wanted Foxconn?
They went to Wisconsin.
It went to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Nothing ever really happened with it. The whole thing fell apart. And I just bring up Foxconn because when Snyder wasn't able to land Foxconn, it was kind of the same thing. There was a lot of beating of breast and gnawing of teeth and like, oh my God, we didn't get Foxconn. And then it turned out the whole thing fizzled out. I mean, then you got to wonder about this thing too. Even if everything, the stars aligned and Trump said yes and whatever, would this have really happened?
Well,
did this company really have this type of
These facilities are
desire?
being built in other states right
They
now.
said that Michigan was the choice.
Okay,
sure. And
all
they said we were not looking anywhere else. So on those that want to point the finger at Mr. Trump, rightly or wrongly, if the company sat there and said Michigan was our choice, they had the land and we're not going to do this, well, what happened? Okay, no other state was coming in to take this away. What went wrong?
They're saying economic uncertainty and concern over tariffs and what we don't know is going to happen with the U.S. economy.
Mike Dugen picked up something this week that's kind of interesting.
That was pretty surprising.
That
how early it happened. It does.
Yeah.
I mean, the Detroit Regional Chamber is obviously an ally of Mayor Dugen in Detroit. But for them to come out this early when this race is so much in flux and say they're going to endorse Dugen, I mean, that was pretty tradition breaking.
You mean because the conference, the Mike Dugen conference on Mackinac Island actually paid off or something?
I mean, I thought, yes. I mean, obviously, they gave him quite a stage. They gave him quite a stage at the conference. But usually, what do? They endorse in one primary, they endorse in another primary. They put all of these kind of lines out there. Hey, if this person wins, we got this person going to the general. They're putting everything in the Mike Dugen basket right now.
You know what I thought was interesting is that earlier in the week they endorsed Fred Durhal for mayor.
For mayor, where did that come from?
Like, what do you mean? I mean, Fred Durhal is like in the mid to low single digits in the polls. People are already voting in the city of Detroit, and they're endorsing Fred Durhal. So in one they endorsed too late, and this one they're endorsing really early.
That's the question I had, and I would throw this out to the panel. Why do you think they rolled this endorsement out for Dugen at this point? I don't have an answer to that.
Why not? It's the middle of summer. There's nothing going on. The Tigers are going to win the pennant. You get it out of the way, and why not?
But from Dugen's perspective, wouldn't you want this closer to like next year? Or are you trying to prove to people?
No. If you're building a house, you start with the foundation. You don't start with the attic.
Fair point.
Okay, you start with the foundation. Now he can go around and say to other chambers, see what your buddies did in Detroit.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the political implications of this for everybody else who's running? If your name is Benson or Garland Gilchrist, you're going, whoops.
Look, this is absolutely fascinating, but I was talking to someone who, when Dugen, when we were all really shocked just about the independent announcement, who said if this PAC board got together tomorrow, it would be a unanimous vote for Dugen. So I'm not shocked that the question and conversation about the timing. Oh, in Detroit.
So much for the Democratic bounce.
Right. I think what this is doing is this is continuing to legitimize and make it feel less insane of a decision, right? Like this is helping to go, you know what, maybe this actually is a political path that could work.
Or it could just be that Dugan's got 4 more months left as mayor of Detroit, and maybe that helps the chamber with the last 4 months of Dugan's tenure.
Oh, you cynic! You cynic! He's got I think that train is left.
He is the Mick Jagger of this. Like, girl, I know
the next shoe to drop. The next shoe to drop is the politics, no party thing group. Okay, that wanted to feel.
No labels.
I think they might endorse him. The national group.
And we've talked about this. I mean, Rich Schuba's polling before the Mackinac conference, which, what did you call it, the Dugen conference? months
The
now.
Dugen conference,
I mean, showed. Rich Schuba said to me that Dugen's polling numbers are the most fascinating he has seen in his 40 years of polling.
It's still very hard to poll a third-party candidate, an independent candidate. This is still, at this point, a theory. I'm not saying it might not work. It's still a theory that this is a possibility.
It's like eating candy. It looks good until you swallow it.
I mean,
okay?
voters in Michigan have shown no willingness to go for this before.
All right, our guest is chomping at the bit to get in here. So, Mr. Matt, come on in. Representative. Representative, welcome to Off the Record. It's good to see you again and nice to have you on board. All right, so are we brilliant or what?
You are brilliant. I cannot believe you've done over 2,500 shows, and congratulations. That's a legacy in this town.
It doesn't mean squat. Answer the question, please.
What was the question again?
I can't remember.
It's going extremely well.
Look, is Mr. Trump responsible for the loss of these jobs?
And are you talking about Money Township?
Yes.
Absolutely not. You know, the cost...
His policies changed the dynamics of this whole discussion, did they not?
Tariffs are designed to bring manufacturing back to the U.S., okay? Where the manufacturing happens to locate depends on a number of things. And in Michigan, part of the reason that they didn't locate here is because the cost of energy is so high in Michigan. We have some of the highest...
Wait a second, they just gave them the entire state, okay? And they're still griping about the energy?
Yeah. These people are smart. They want $6 billion and they want a low cost of energy, because when you're talking about building semiconductors, the cost of energy is like 75% of your cost in manufacturing, okay? And no one's talking about the $260 million that the Democrats and Genesee County spent to prepare the site, okay? They evicted literally 36 families from this, you know, I forgot how many acres it was, but you know that is insane. That should be criminal, you know. And $6 billion represents about $1,200 for every single working person in the state. We have about a 5 million workforce in Michigan, and you divide $6 billion by 5 million people who are working and paying taxes and carrying the load in Michigan. That's $1,200 per person,
so you would
and that's
know
criminal.
on that.
Absolutely. You know what? I could tell you a story. About 4 years ago, I was sitting at a gas station, and they had a woman in front of me. She was paying for $4 of gas, 4 $1 bills. I was standing behind her. I had 2 20s in my pocket, and I said to the clerk, "Here, put in her gas tank." She turned around, she started crying, and she said, "I'm 56 years old. I work 2 jobs, and I have cancer." Those are the people that the Democrats used to have their backs. They used to watch out for those people. Today, why are we taking money from people living paycheck to paycheck in Garden City and Flint and giving it to multi-billion-dollar companies and multi-billionaires? Why are we doing that? To me, that's insane, and I think it's immoral, to be honest with you.
So do you think that $6 billion, you would have been a no vote, but would that have passed the legislature if the governor said, we need this in order for Monday Township to happen?
Mr. Trump said it too.
I don't think you'd have the votes in our Republican caucus to do it today.
They would stiff the president?
Yeah, if President
You know what? The president would never go there. He's smarter than that. President's a big picture guy, okay? He's looking at bringing everything back to the United States. And I look forward to a day, you know, 3 or 4 years from now, after we win the governor back and after we win the Senate back in Michigan, to talking about the 500,000 manufacturing jobs we're going to bring back to Michigan, and how we're going to reduce the cost of energy in Michigan, because what they're doing, our energy companies are run by a bunch of leftists, environmentalists, communists, and they're ruining our whole state.
The theory the theory you're laying out here, it didn't work here in this situation.
What do you mean?
There are tariffs in place. This company is manufacturing semiconductors already outside the United States.
Okay.
This was an effort to bring them back to the United States to manufacture them here.
Right.
And even with the incentives, they said we can't make this work. And you're saying it would have worked without the incentives as well? Like, it doesn't make sense.
What I'm saying is it would have worked if we had everything the way it should be in Michigan, where we had a 3 cent cost per kilowatt hour of electricity, but these companies these manufacturing, these high energy consumers are not going to relocate to Michigan because we don't
They
have
chose Michigan out of every other state.
because they thought they were going to get $6 billion.
So you don't think any other state was willing to give them
For
incentives?
$6 billion, they can build their own nuclear plant, can't they? Because we don't have enough energy in Michigan.
This was a $63 billion project.
Okay.
So you think there was no role for any incentive to help build a $63 billion facility?
I think it's a fairy tale, to be honest with you. I don't think they ever intended to relocate to Michigan. I think a lot of these companies, if they have a state where they're going to relocate to, they're going to go there whether we give them the incentive or not. I think that's a scam. I think they get our taxpayer money and they plan on coming here anyways.
So let's see. We are sitting here the third week in July.
Yep.
There is no budget. Some of the fewest.
I thought you guys want to talk about Epstein all day today.
Sure, we can talk about Epstein. Well, how is Donald Trump handling what's going on with Epstein and the files?
Russia. That's what Epstein is. It's Russia. It's designed. The whole thing is designed on the media to keep the focus off all the great things Trump's doing for our nation. That's what's really happening.
Okay. So the Epstein Files, Russia is what?
The focus on the Epstein Files is designed to keep the focus off all the great things that President Trump's doing for our nation right now.
Okay,
he has been the most successful president in 6 months. He's done more than any other president's done in 6 months for American families to make America great again. He's taken all these bad people off our streets.
But the base of which you're part of is so frustrated with him over this.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you frustrated with him?
I'm going to stick with Trump. I've been with Trump since 2015. I'm going to have his back no matter what. Okay. He's going to do great things. He's going to be the best president we've had in our nation's history.
The Democrats in town, let's get on the budget, put on your vice chair of the House Appropriations Committee. Are you guys dragging your feet on the budget?
No, we're not dragging our feet.
Then why are there not negotiations?
Winnie Brinks is dragging her feet. I want to tell you about negotiations. These Democrats are so weird, okay, that before the negotiation can start, they sit in the room and they figure out how many coffee cups are allowed on the table. They want a number of different plants in every corner, and they don't sit next to Speaker Hall. They sit 55 feet away on this long table, and they can't even communicate. The whole thing is so weird.
You all haven't even passed the budget, though, yet.
Yeah, why haven't you passed the budget?
That has nothing to do with the Senate. This has to do with why hasn't the House passed a full budget?
You want to know the real reason?
Yes.
Sure,
Okay.
that's what I'm asking.
Okay. So when I first got to this town, my messaging was we're going to cut the fraud, waste, and abuse in Michigan. And that was in 2018. That's never stopped. So what's happening today, and it's still happening, I have lobbyists, great people. There are a handful of great lobbyists in Michigan and Lansing, and they are literally sneaking into my office. Sneaking into my office and telling me where the fraud, waste, and abuse is. And I'm sharing that information with other committee members, and we are still in the process of doing our due diligence. We are going through this budget line item by line item. We are rolling down every single line item in the budget, and we have identified so much fraud, waste, and abuse in Michigan.
Can you give us a few examples?
I want to talk about the education budget, right? Everyone wants to talk about the education budget.
First of all, give me a dollar number. How big is the abuse?
Oh my gosh, I don't have a dollar.
Well, wait a second. You've been crunching the numbers.
Probably hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars easily. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Zoe.
Yeah.
No,
So our education budget. I had no idea until this year that there was such a concentration of lobbyists that are focused on our education budget. And I'm trying to figure it out. Well, I figured it out. There's over 110 different pork barrel projects in our education budget. Money that does not go into the classrooms, money that goes to all these outside nonprofit run by a bunch of leftists that doesn't benefit the kids. We cut that. We also gave the Democrats the largest per pupil increase in Michigan history, and they're still saying no. It doesn't make any sense. The whole thing's crazy.
Are you willing to shut down the state government?
We're not going to shut it down. The Democrats are probably going to shut it down because we are giving them a great budget. We are giving them everything they want regarding education. We have a roads plan that is going to be a historic roads plan in Michigan, a historic increase in funding. And the Democrats, I don't get it. You know, the whole thing's Julie Brixey to me.
What do you mean by that?
The whole thing's crazy. What we're trying to do with the Democrats, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. You know, what Winnie Brinks is doing, it's insanity, and that I think the Democrats are all going crazy right now because of Trump and the fact that they're losing their base.
Representative, the state House and the state Senate have passed to the governor 6 bills so far this entire calendar year. We haven't seen this level of futility from the legislature
That's a good
since
thing,
1940,
because
when they didn't even meet, Representative. So you're saying this is a good thing? You guys have only passed 6 bills when you usually pass 180 by this point?
Because the fewer things we do in Lansing typically is better for everyone in Michigan. And because the Democrats aren't going to do anything good for Michigan. The handful of bills that have been passed have been nonpartisan, just do nothing bills, to be honest with you.
So when will the serious talks begin? When will you stop counting beans and start negotiating?
We're negotiating right now. Matt Hall's probably...
Where do things stand right now? I mean, you kind of hear all the different sides, but from your perspective, Governor Whitmer just yesterday said there is going to be no budget without a roads deal, right? I mean,
we have a great roads deal.
The House Republicans have, their $3 billion. The governor has their $3 billion.
Right.
Are you anywhere close to figuring out where the $3 billion is going to come from? I know where yours comes from. I'm saying, at some point you guys have to come to the table and compromise, right? So where is there compromise right now about that $3 billion and where those dollars are going to come from?
You know what Governor Whitmer said to President Trump 2 days ago when Matt Hall was in the White House in the Oval Office with Governor Whitmer?
Wait, Governor Whitmer and Matt Hall were in the Oval Office 2 days ago?
She said she agrees with Matt Hall 70% of the time. And you know what? Gretchen Whitmer's not the problem here. The problem is Winnie Brinks and her disjointed Senate members, and they can't get their crap together, and they have all these crazy, weird demands. The whole thing's weird. I don't know how to explain it. I've been in Lansing for 7 years, and I've never seen such weirdness from the Democrats.
Will you stay for an overtime?
Sure.
I think you're on a roll.
I love talking to you guys.
We might get,
I love the fake news.
All right, so
now it's a reality show.
But in your gut, you think you will hit the October 1st deadline?
I have no idea what's. Like I said, I've been here for 7 years. I've negotiated many budgets, and I've never seen so many things that are so weird in the Democrats.
Well, why doesn't the House just go ahead and pass a budget?
I don't know how to explain it.
Is it weird that the House hasn't passed a budget?
It's just weird.
I mean, if you look back, the House has usually passed a budget by now.
Yeah,
when are you going to pass a budget?
I don't know. That's
take a deep breath. Okay, have a sip of gin, or excuse me, water, and go to WKAR.org for more of our conversation with the good representative right here on Off the Record. Watch these credits first.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Bellwether Public Relations, a full-service strategic communications agency partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and issue advocacy. Learn more at bellwetherpr.com. For more Off the Record, visit WKAR.org. Michigan public television stations have contributed to the production costs of Off the Record.